Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Micah podcast universe.
The podcast that exists to prove people wrong when they say...
Sequels are never better than the originals.
There you go.
My name's Micah.
My name's Jordan Micah.
And we are tackling X-Men finally.
We barely have our feet wet.
Yeah, we haven't even gone into... we're not even a third of the way done with this series.
No.
We're close to a fourth of the way done, but we're not quite there yet. And today we're rounding out like the original attempt at X-Men. And this is also, I can tell that our dog is going to be nutso on this episode. So be on the lookout for that. If you hear any mic nudges,
that'd be Gilmore.
Or if you hear any squeaking toys,
that'd be Gilmore.
Yeah, he's going a little nuts right now, even though he got back from a walk not that long ago. Anyway, so this rounds out the end of the original X-Men trilogy. And then from here on out, it is going to be convoluted central. It's going to be a lot of, wait, that didn't actually happen, or maybe it did, or it's a prequel, but it doesn't really line up, or it's another time zone or something. And I have actually not, we're going to start getting into a zone soon where I'm not really sure all the movies that I've seen. Well, no, I know the movies I haven't seen, but there's a lot I haven't seen.
Okay.
But yeah, what do you think of what was this your first time?
Well, it turned out to be my first time. I thought I had seen this movie.
Oh, I should say it's X-Men The Last Stand we're talking about. I didn't mention that.
Very quickly into it, I thought, this isn't familiar. I don't remember Kelsey Grammar. And then I also didn't remember Elliot Page. And I said, I thought I saw him at for a moment. And I was like, if Elliot Page is in this movie, I've not seen this movie. And he is. So yeah, I've not seen this movie.
Yep.
But boy, diggity dog, I liked this movie.
Yeah.
This was the best one so far. And based on what I've heard, might be my favorite. Which you have told me, comic book person, more plugged into the cultural zeitgeist of these things, is an outlier opinion.
Yeah, this is, around this time also Spider-Man 3 came out, I think in 2007, I want to say, so a year after this. And so this was people being like, wow, 3 great trilogies that really whiffed the last movie, hardcore.
Yeah.
And yeah, people really dislike this movie. This is definitely a bottom tier X-Men movie for most people.
Yeah. So I think what has helped me in this viewing,
yeah,
in a way it could help me with a lot of these things, is I've never read an X-Men comic and I did not grow up watching these movies. So I think that can only help me at this point. Because I'm not going in with any preconceived notions other than it feels like anytime a new one comes out, people hate it. That's all I feel that I hear. Yeah.
They're an interesting bag of movies. I mean, now that we're a little bit past the more recent entries, I am kind of excited to watch them just to see what the heck they tried to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. This movie is the first of 2 times that they try to adapt one of the most famous comic book storylines ever written.
And when was it written?
In the 80s, I believe.
Okay.
The Dark Pheonix saga. And this is a very unpopular opinion, but I have read the Dark Pheonix saga, and there's a lot of good in it. It's definitely good. But to me, and this is personal, if you love it, I get it. It just did not, it never transcended to that moment. You know when you're reading a classic book and you start reading it and you're like, okay, whatever. And then there's usually a moment where you go, oh, yeah, this is a classic book for a reason.
So what's a comic book storyline that's transcendent to you?
Well, I would say I'd heard a lot about Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Yeah.
And when I started reading it, I was like, oh, this is really good. This is really good. And then when you get to the end of his run, and it's Reborn, Daredevil Reborn, holy cow. It is yeah, this is some of the best comics I've ever read.
Cool.
And you just know, you're like, yeah, this is a classic for a reason. This is always gonna stand the test of time.
Have they done this storyline in any of the Daredevil stuff we've had?
They are coming out with the show, Daredevil Reborn.
Okay.
And I actually think the comic's so good that I'm not going to watch the show.
Oh, wow. It's sacred.
I just think there's no way for them to do it. And especially with his appearance in She-Hulk, I'm like, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to pull it off. And they said it's going to be 21 episodes.
Huh? Is it 21 episodes, like an hour long each?
I'm guessing. And
Oof.
I would have to, it's just not worth even watching, in my opinion, for me, because I thought the comic was so good.
Yeah.
It would be, I feel like it'd be like the feeling I felt when I was sitting there watching Desolation of Smaug for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is so bad, and the book is so good, that I'm like so angry that I'm watching it.
Yeah.
So I am not going to watch that show.
Okay. Who wrote the Dark Pheonix run?
Chris Claremont,
Okay.
who is kind of like the X-Men guy.
Okay.
People love him. I'm actually not a huge fan of his writing. I think he's a little all over the place, and I think in his comic book run, because I've read probably about 100 issues that he's written, maybe a little less, he has a tendency, in my opinion, to do stuff like the comics going along, and then someone just thinks something to the effect of like, oh yeah, this person is not impervious to water, so let's do a water attack. But he never like set that up, and you never knew that information until someone said it. So I didn't find a lot of tension. But he has like some undeniable great stories. And there's one, Days of Future Past, which is a movie title as well. And it's like 2 issues. Unbelievable.
Okay.
That's pretty transcendent. I like that more than the Dark Phoenix saga.
Okay.
But Dark Phoenix saga is like one of the biggest ones. So I'm presenting this to you, the listener, in case you didn't know, because this movie adapts that. Now, it adapts it vastly different. It is so different. The basically what we have in common is Jean Grey dies and she's reborn as something more powerful. That's like all that's in common.
Okay. Have you seen the newest one?
No.
With it? Okay, so you don't know how different it might be?
That one looks like it's more like they're more trying to do what the comics did.
Yeah.
I think people like that movie less than this movie. So
really? And
here's the kicker. The writer of this movie, one of the writers, is the director and writer of that movie.
Whoa, he got a second try.
So, and it's his directorial debut.
Oh my gosh, that really sucks for him.
Yeah. So, all of that to say, I really think that one of the reasons people dislike this so much is because they love Dark Phoenix so much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That they can't see it for what it is.
So let me talk about it from a non-Dark Phoenix fan perspective. The first 2 movies are good.
Second one's great.
Really think the second one's great. I don't know. I mean, it's great only because Nightcrawler's in it. And that is my biggest issue with this movie is that there's no Nightcrawler in it. Yeah. And there's no mention of Nightcrawler. And it's probably because Alan Cummings didn't want to work in this kind of environment again. And I can respect that. But big downside to this
I
movie.
will let you know why he wasn't in the movie in a little bit.
But that all that tossed aside, I feel like the first 2 movies were all over the place, kind of like how you're describing the comics.
Yeah.
Where there's like a main thing going on, and the people's motivations are clear and stuff. But I just felt myself at times being like, but what are they doing?
Yeah.
That I felt that a lot in the first 2 movies, and this movie was so streamlined, and I felt way more invested in how everyone was affected by anything.
It's a hot take, folks.
It truly is just a classic, just, I don't know the right word, so I'll use classic. It's just a classically better made movie than the first 2. It is just a better movie.
I don't agree with you. That's
crazy to me.
I don't agree with you in terms of, I do think that the second movie is much better than this movie. But here's my hot take, is I think this movie's really good. Mm-hmm. It's actually a little confusing to me how much people don't like this movie, because I think it's pretty decent, and I think that the way they adapted the Phoenix storyline made sense for the world that they created.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a couple of things I would 2 come to mind that really hurt this movie.
One being
immensely.
Kelsey Grammar.
No, he's
I'm
actually
just kidding,
okay
I'm
in the
kidding.
movie. No, the two are that Cyclops unceremoniously dies and is
Yeah,
removed from
I
the
know.
movie for
I mean, do you know
no
what they
reason.
probably thought though? Well, one, I'm curious still.
I know why.
Okay, cool. But I am curious before you tell me why. But it's like, well, no one missed him in the second movie, so why would we give him this big death scene in the third one?
Yeah.
Because he was not even, he was barely in the second movie.
Yeah, and then right, yes. But
That was
then
a joke.
huh?
It was a joke.
I know. I just didn't. I didn't really.
You didn't think it was funny. Just say it.
And then the second thing is the lack of Nightcrawler, and there's like no mention, no nothing.
There's no nothing. No respect. Guy gets no
Yeah.
respect.
And I just think
I have
those
nothing
two
but
things
respect.
like really hurt this movie.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
You trade one blue guy out for another one, no good.
Yeah.
Not good
But
enough.
we're gonna explain why.
Okay.
But yeah, so when I saw this movie when I was a kid, all three of these movies I've just seen one time. This was my second time seeing them, about 15 years after I'd seen them first, ish. And yeah, I liked it then, but then I was not on the internet as much because it was still I was not on it as much, and I didn't know that people didn't like the third movie, and so
Oh.
I was just like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And then I watched it again, and I've seen videos and all that stuff, and people talking, and it's always kind of like we all know X-Men: The Last Stand sucks. Now let's keep talking about this
Wow.
story, or whatever.
It's just, I just really like, because the second movie does this too, and this is what I like about the second movie, where Magneto is forced to help.
Yeah,
I mean, this doesn't really happen in the third movie, but he's forced to help. But in the end, it's to serve what he wants.
yeah,
So it's not changed, and no one thought for a second he was. And then in this movie, he continues to be the bad guy. I think it's cool that we have this big bad guy in 3 movies.
Oh, I love that. I love
It's so
that.
cool. But
I mean, Magneto's one of the great villains. It would be such a shame to kill him
and
off.
he's just like, to me, a kind of a classic villain of like, I don't disagree with him. I disagree with how he's doing it, but I don't
Which is perfect. That's what you want.
But I don't disagree with like the why.
Yeah.
So in this movie, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't like. I guess I'm just even more invested than the other 2 movies in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, you're talking to the one other person that also likes this movie.
Yeah.
So you saying you like it more than X2, I'm like, okay. I don't think that that's a weird opinion, but the world does. But I do think I think the story is much stronger in the second movie as well. All of the Wolverine and Stryker stuff, and
You see, I just thought that was all so meandering
yeah,
and not well done. That I hope in like the origins or whatever it is that it's like they figured it out by then.
No.
Yeah, but they haven't.
No.
But that's my hope. My hope would be like they half-assed this in the second movie, in my opinion, because there's so many players. They can't like fully get into anything. So that's a tough thing with just ensemble casts.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it really felt like everyone got their due.
Yeah.
More than the second movie.
Well, we're gonna get into it because it's we are the random people, the only people that like this movie.
And Gilmore.
Yeah. Now, this is the first time that a movie is not directed by super creep Bryan Singer. It's directed by what is it called? Colleague super creep Brett Ratner, who we talked about in our Red Dragon episode. Was hoping not to talk about him again, but we had to. And if we ever cover Rush Hour, we'll have to talk about him again.
Man, how many of those movies?
I believe all 3.
Whoa. Okay.
But yeah, real bad dude. The movie is written by Simon Kinberg, who wrote Dark Pheonix and directed it. He also did Sherlock Holmes,
Poor
the
guy.
Robert Downey Jr. movie.
Oh, he's doing pretty okay.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
This Means War.
Oh, This Means War. Okay.
He wrote that. And then one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, Fantastic Four, 2015.
Oh,
that we covered
now
on this
I'm back to
podcast.
pitying this person.
Those are just a couple. He has a lot of writing credits. We got Zach Penn returning to write as well. The cinematography is by Dante Spinati, who did Red Dragon. The music is by John Powell, who did Face.
Oh, I also thought this movie looked way better than the other two.
Huh, okay.
It looked way better.
I think X2 looks better.
That's
but
wild to me.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Luckily the entire internet is on my side, so. The music is by John Powell, who did Face Off, Born Identity, Kung Fu Panda, and most recently Encanto.
Wait, who is this?
John Powell, the music.
Cool.
It comes out May 26, 2006. $210 million budget. It makes $234 domestically, and it makes $460 worldwide.
Not great compared to the other two, right?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think the world is about the same, but I think the domestic's about the same, but the budget's way higher.
Oh, okay. That's what gets you.
Yeah. So Singer leaves so that he can work on Superman Returns. He didn't have quite the vision or the a idea for X-Men 3, so he didn't even try to stay on. And it goes through a slew of potential directors. But they eventually sign on Matthew Vaughn, who I believe directs X-Men First Class and is the Secret Service director. The what is that called?
Secret Service
the Kingsman movies.
Oh, okay.
And he's the one who cast Kelsey Grammer as Beast.
Okay. You got notes on that?
No. That's all I got.
Weird.
But then he would have had to move to L.A. and uproot his family and bring him to L.A.
Where is he from?
I
Who
don't
is this?
know.
Oh, the director.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And it would have been at least a year of their life, and he didn't want to do that with his family, so he didn't make the movie. And so then they sign on Brett Ratner. The writers. So apparently the writers had to fight for Fox executives to retain the Phoenix plot, as the studio only wanted the Cure story, as it provided a reason for Magneto's conflict with the X-Men. Still, the disputes made them not add much for Jean Grey to do in most of the film's second half, as the executives considered the tone of the Phoenix story too dark for a mainstream summer movie.
Oh, that's such a bad decision.
Yeah, and that its appeal would be limited to hardcore fans.
No, that's such a bad decision.
Yeah.
If it's one of the best comics of all time, then the world will like it. You know?
I know.
That's so dumb.
And it was funny when I was reading that, I did realize, which is another knock against this movie. I just didn't even realize it when we were watching it, but after reading that, I'm like, oh yeah, she doesn't really do anything until the last 2 minutes of the movie.
It's true. She doesn't.
So in that way,
that's disrespecting comic books to assume that people won't like it. It's like saying, yeah, we know that comic books at this point have proven to make a lot of money, but we're still not buying that they can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's so lame.
Yeah, and I guess that's another knock on the way they adapted that story.
Yeah.
If you're going to adapt one of the biggest, big deal. And then you kind of leave them out to dry.
Yeah.
But here is one of the reasons why Cyclops wasn't in this movie much.
Okay.
First of all, Marsden had limited availability as he was cast in Superman Returns.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they were like, hey, you gotta not have him as much in this movie. But one of the reasons Simon Kinberg said Cyclops isn't good for the audience is, quote, with Cyclops, you can't see his eyes. It's a harder character to relate to for the audience.
Get out of here. Stop doing your job because you're not good at it.
I think that's so stupid.
That's one of the dumbest things ever.
Because he's, when I read X-Men, Cyclops is actually one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He's awesome. And I like that he's always so sure of himself, but he's often wrong.
Oh, interesting.
And he's usually leads the X-Men and stuff. I shouldn't say often wrong, but he's proven wrong.
Real overconfident.
Yeah, but he's always like, I know what to do. Let's do it. And I just think he's a great character. And I don't think you have to see his eyes to get what he's going through.
No.
Especially because he's been crying and stuff in the other movies, and you get it.
Yeah. That is such a waste.
I know.
Do you know that you have James Marsden? That's a big deal.
I know. Simultaneously, the studio is working on X-Men Origins, which we're going to get into next week. And then here we go. Nightcrawler. Why wasn't he in the movie? He was pretty reluctant to sign on again with all the crap he had to go through with the makeup.
Yes.
And the script didn't have a lot for him to do.
So, okay, yeah.
So the studio was just like, let's just cut him. It's going to cost too much money to do all this makeup.
We already have Mystique.
Yeah, but he was willing to do it.
Okay.
He would have done it if they wanted him to do it. But they were like, it's not...
make it worth it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And then this was the most expensive movie until Dead Man's Chest came out this same year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then in February of 2006, Ratner announced that it was the final X-Men movie.
Yeah.
So
While they're simultaneously working on an Origins movie?
Well, he meant like the final X-Men movie, because that was going to be a Wolverine movie. So, and I guess there was some stuff where, like, since the studio was working on X-Men Origins, they were like, you can use this character, but you can't use this character and stuff like that. So it sounds like maybe there were some disagreements there.
I think one reason I liked this movie, too, I didn't know that this was a finale to a trilogy.
Okay.
So when certain events happened, it was shocking to me, because it's like...
Yeah.
Basically, when Professor X died, it was like, oh, there are stakes. I mean, the first thing I think of is like, he'll be back.
Yeah.
It's like they're never really dead. But at the same time, it's like, oh, geez, we're like halfway through the movie and they did this.
Yeah, when this movie ended, Jordan was basically like, wait, how were there other movies? And I had to explain, to the best of my knowledge, as I haven't seen the rest of them. I've seen some of them, but not all of them. What I believed the rest of the movies did and were about.
Which I'm not looking forward to figuring out.
I am. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. But yeah, we finished like series 1 proper, and then Wolverine is like the epilogue, I guess you could say, until they restart the series anew in 2011.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
okay,
that's what I got on notes.
So getting into actors, we have covered Kelsey Grammar because of Toy Story.
What?
Is he in Toy Story 3? Isn't he the bear? No. He's the guy in Toy Story 2.
Is he the prospector?
Yes.
Oh.
Can you double check that for me?
Yeah, I will double check that.
But yeah, he's in Toy Story. And we've also covered Elliot Page because of wait.
What would we
have we
done?
covered?
No.
I think I'm blinking. I think I thought of Inception, which made me think of Batman.
He is the prospector.
Okay.
Nah, good
call. No, we haven't covered Elliot Page. Whoops.
No.
Okay. Elliot Page is in one of my favorite movies that I watch at least once a year, Juno.
Once a year,
Juno. Man, I love that movie.
Good movie.
Gets me every time. Also in Inception, Hard Candy,
Umbrella
Academy. And a ton of stuff.
And a million other things.
And it continues to be in X-Men movies from here on out.
No.
More or less. What?
No.
This is the one and only?
That's it.
Oh, I thought that. Like, okay.
Because and this is to give you, so Wolverine, here's what has confused me about the series too, is like Wolverine, you have a little bit of crossover of characters, like Ryan Reynolds is in it, and then he's gonna play in the future Deadpool
10 years later, whatever.
Yeah. But then when they do the X-Men First Class, it's a prequel. So, okay, the characters are younger. But then it's like later they adapt Dark Pheonix. So that would mean that it's got to be a different storyline or something. And then, but Wolverine is in those movies as Hugh Jackman. So that's where it starts getting really confusing and convoluted.
You're explaining something that I wasn't going for.
Oh,
I just thought that Elliot Page was in more X-Men movies.
Yeah, but I mean, like, this is... Like, these actors are done.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, Hugh Jackman is definitely in more. I don't think Ian McKellen is in anymore. But I think, I mean, Patrick Stewart, I know he's in Logan, but I think he's also in a couple of the other ones. So they kind of just pick and choose who they want to play again.
Whoever needs the money. Vinnie Jones plays Juggernaut. He is in Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Barrel, the Midnight Meat Train, and more.
I don't think he's good in this. And
It's whatever. He's the muscle.
This is one of my complaints as well. I think this is a very bad adaptation of Juggernaut.
Yeah, when I looked, because you said that his appearance was poor, so I looked up the comic book version, and the comic book version is so much cooler.
Yeah, and I think Juggernaut is a very cool villain, and I do not think they remotely do him justice in this movie. And I don't remember them doing much justice to him in Deadpool 2 as well.
He's in Deadpool 2.
He is.
Who plays him?
I knew you were going to have that reaction.
What? Who plays him?
I don't know. He's like a CGI blob and also looks bad,
What?
but he looks more like the comic. They like stretch out his face and stuff and make him look like the comic.
Okay. Ben Foster is in this movie to look pretty.
Yeah.
He's also in Hell or High Water, 3:10 to Yuma, The Messenger, Leave No Trace.
Yeah, that.
Emancipation, so on and so forth.
What do you think about Ben Foster?
Like I said while we were watching it, I recognize who that is, didn't know what his name was, and I don't know if I've actually seen him in like many things at all.
Oh, okay.
What do you think of Ben Foster?
I've definitely really, really liked him, but I'm starting to think maybe I don't like him that much.
Okay.
I kind of feel like he's maybe one of those guys that just takes it all a little too seriously.
Oh, including this movie?
And
because he's not given much to do.
Yeah. I mean, he's young and whatnot. What else is he gonna do with this performance? But but he was in The Hustle this year with Adam Sandler, and he was good in that. He's always really good, but sometimes it's like, dude, cool it. We get you're an actor.
Yeah.
You don't have to take this so seriously. It's kind of how it feels sometimes.
Okay.
But he is good. I don't know.
That's all on you, man.
I'd love to hear your Ben Foster opinions, those listening.
Okay, and then these other Dania Ramirez plays Callisto. Is that the fast girl?
Probably.
I think so. She's also in Premium Rush, American.
She's got to be fast in that too, right?
American Reunion, which is an American Pie thing. Heroes.
The show?
Yeah,
Heroes?
the show Heroes.
Okay.
Sweet Tooth, Jumanji, the second Jumanji, The Next Level.
Okay.
And other Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
Shohreh Aghdashloo plays Dr. Kavita Rao. That was just the lady doctor who was studying the child.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes.
I couldn't place her, although like she's so recognizable to me.
Yeah.
She's in 24.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay.
Which I think is what I'm thinking of.
That's what I'm thinking of for sure.
She's also in Star Trek Beyond, but I don't think I've seen that one.
You haven't.
Okay. This is a very weird opinion, maybe, or just a weird thing, but she was very distracting to me during this movie.
Really?
I was not convinced in any moment of her acting.
Really? Okay.
I think that I felt like she was just saying lines.
Okay, I didn't clock that.
But she wasn't in it a lot to like probably really say anything, so sorry.
Hey, sometimes someone who's got a bit part doesn't pull it off, you know?
And then Cameron Bright plays Jimmy, or Leach, which is the kid.
The little kid, okay.
He is in Thank You for Smoking, Birth, Godsend, Running Scared, and I still have not found the thing that I recognize this kid from.
Okay.
But that's what he's in. Oh,
okay.
He's in Twilight Breaking Dawn, Therapy. He's in the Voltaire.
Ah, yes, okay.
That's what I recognize him from.
A good reminder to listen to our critically acclaimed series on Twilight from 2 or 3 years ago by now.
It was a fun time.
It really was. I am now eternally kind of love that series, even though they're all bad.
I would rewatch pretty much any of them besides Eclipse.
I would rewatch them as well. I mean, I wouldn't be like, let's rewatch them, but like if we were at someone's house and they were watching it, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch this. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
They're just such a perfect time capsule of the early teens.
Oh yeah.
And they're very
It's like
nostalgic.
Can't wait for my kids to see these movies.
Yeah. But
feel the angst.
That is the cast and the notes of the movie. Should we jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the movie begins. And we get the Marvel logo. It's back when they used to do the flipping pages, which
like it.
I like those more.
Classic.
And
retro.
This flipping page is all X-Men panels, which is fun.
And then we are 20 years. Does it say what year it is?
20. Oh my gosh.
20 years in the past?
20 years ago is
20
what it
years
says.
ago.
Yes.
We see a nice little suburban neighborhood. Car
Yeah.
pulls up. Man gets out. And then the camera trails up his long legs, long torso, long arms.
Big reveal. No wheelchair.
No wheelchair.
It's Charles
and
Xavier.
A strange looking Charles Xavier. Not strange because he looks young. Strange because we're in 2006 and we are witnessing the first uses of de-aging.
The first time it's used in a movie. And folks, if I could close one Pandora's box in history, I think it'd be de-aging. I have harped on it many, many times. Fortunately, I think people are starting to come around to using new actors again when they recast stuff. But at the same time, we have an Indiana Jones movie that for no reason at all has de-aging in it. In a series where they have already had another actor play
Micah,
young Indiana
it's simply
Jones.
Because we can.
Yes, and we never stopped to ask if we should. We just did. It's a classic Jurassic Park question.
Yeah.
And it's also doesn't make sense because you said they could have just put hair on him and it would make him look, 20 years younger.
Yeah. Also, they're obvious. I don't know. So also Ian McKellen gets out of the car.
He's de-aged.
And he's de-aged too. And they just look a little weird.
Very
I
Barbie dolly-ish.
For 2006, if you told me that this movie used de-aging in 2006 prior to me seeing it, I would have expected worse. So I will give the movie that. I'm not saying they should have done it, but I hope that makes sense. But also, people underestimate the power of a little bit of makeup to hide up some wrinkles. Because wrinkles are what make people look old.
Yeah.
Just use a little bit of makeup on some of them.
It's crazy.
Because they don't look that much younger.
And you know what? I am actually realizing that already the prequel of X-Men First Class doesn't make sense because of this scene.
Really?
Yes, because it says this happened 20 years ago, which would mean it'd be in the 80s, be 1986.
Well, how would we know, though? Because this is 20 years in the past, and then we go to 10 years in the past.
Yeah.
And then we go to a not-too-distant future. So 20 years in the past from what? From a not-too-distant future or from today?
Yeah. That's a good point. But
so what do they do in
Well, in X-Men, oh man, it's gonna be tough to get through that movie. First Class, he gets paralyzed in that movie during the Cuban Missile Crisis, which Magneto is like doing.
Oh,
so
that's complicated.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense because this is in the 80s and whatnot. So let me just confirm here because we're on a podcast. We're talking about the nitty gritty. So I want to confirm X-Men The Last Stand. When do they go to Jean Grey's in the 80s? I don't think that's a good way to word this question.
You're not getting a result.
Plot in 1986, Charles Xavier and Eric. Yeah. So already the X-Men First Class as a prequel doesn't work.
Okay.
Anyway.
Cool. So 20 years in the past from us. From 2006.
Yeah.
So they go into the home. They've been invited to this home by these parents who are concerned about their daughter because she's exhibiting some abnormalities, and they claim they can help her.
Uh-huh.
We've heard this song and dance before. and then they proceed to say, "Can we talk to your daughter alone?"
We're just. And
the parents are like, "Oh, I see nothing wrong with that."
Yeah, unassuming men. Don't worry about us.
So the parents leave, and the girl comes in, and we're all supposed to be. Parents everywhere are squirming in their seats. Maybe not in 2006. I don't know.
No, you are. But super creep Brett Ratner doesn't think that that's weird.
Well, of course not.
And so then they're like, "We know you have extraordinary abilities, Jean." And then she lifts all the cars in the block.
Oh, I thought Professor X was doing that.
No, she does it.
Oh, okay. Maybe at first I thought he was doing it.
Yeah, and then she drops it, and they're both like, "Holy cow!" So
I was terrified for the man who was mowing his lawn and his lawnmower.
Yeah,
went up to the air running. I would be running away from that lawnmower.
Yeah, not good. So that happens, and we see that's how they recruited her. And it's fun to see that they used to work together on the recruitments.
Yes, I liked that.
Yeah, and then it goes 10 years ago, And we see the scene that I remember this movie opening with.
I mean, I think you could still call it opening, but you mean
Yeah.
like literally the first shot.
Yeah, I thought that this was the first shot. And it is a young angel as he is cutting off his wings and like trying to grind them off.
Crazy, yo. This is gnarly.
I love this.
Me too.
I think it's this
So
like
the kid is scared of who he is.
yeah, this is like classic X-Men kind of
Yeah.
how what I like when the comics dig into this stuff. I am like, yeah, baby, I'm into this.
Yeah.
So
Not only probably scared, but ashamed because of who his dad is.
right. And so his dad like walks in on him and he's been like cutting off his wings and we see feathers everywhere. And it's clear that this like just happened. Like he hasn't had these wings. It's like they just started sprouting.
Oh, for some reason I just thought maybe this is something he's done before. Not before, but like
No, because
yeah, okay.
a lot of the I think the thing with the X-Men is they develop their genes later. They're not born with their genes.
Oh, really?
Or I mean, they are, but they
But they don't exhibit it then.
it's like also kind of like a metaphor for going through at puberty.
Oh, okay.
I think anyway. That's
makes
what
sense.
I'm remembering.
Yeah.
So anyway, but
Interesting.
I think there are children in later X-Men.
But maybe they got
things.
it earlier.
Yeah, but it's like your gene like flips, one day or something like that.
Oh, why didn't they use that in the narration at the beginning of the first two movies?
I know. Well, because you think about someone like Rogue, and she couldn't have like lived if she was killing anyone that she ever touched.
So that was the first time that happened to her?
So I think the implication is the first time it happened to her was when we saw it at the beginning of that
For some
movie.
reason, I never thought that, which makes so much sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
Why she was freaking out.
Right. And then it says the not too distant future, and we see like a Terminator opening, like just a destroyed world.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the gang. We're getting reintroduced to them. They do a classic couple of X-Men things I got to point out. One, Wolverine's got his sweet old cigar, and he is just worried about lighting it. So he's like lighting it on fire that's burning somewhere else. And then he asks Colossus to throw him.
Oh, is that an X-Men thing?
Oh, yeah, baby. And that's always awesome. And it always takes up a lot of panels, and it looks great.
Yeah.
So he throws him, and he cuts off the head of a sentinel, and that comes flying down.
It's a Sentinel?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
Isn't that in, like, Eternals?
No, those
Oh.
are Celestials.
Okay.
And, well, you can't roll your eyes. They all have to have different names. Come on.
I just didn't know that I thought they were just fighting a Transformer.
No, this is a sentinel. These are very
Are they alien beings?
no.
What are they?
They're created to stop mutants.
By who?
I believe the government does it.
Wow.
I think.
Interesting.
I could be wrong on that though. So, and I think different people throughout different runs have done different things with them.
But then we find out that this is a simulation.
Yes.
So Storm, X-Man, meaning Wolverine in my brain. Colossus, Iceman, Kitty Pryde. Does she have an X-Men name?
We'll call her Kitty Pryde. I don't remember.
Lame if she doesn't. And then Rogue are in the simulation training.
Yeah.
And Storm gets mad at Wolverine for not being a team player because they're trying to teach teamwork.
Yeah. And I do want to point out the last two movies, they have tried to...
Shadowcat.
Okay, that doesn't
That
stick.
doesn't make
I
sense.
think for the most part, Kitty Pryde is just called Kitty Pryde because they try other names and it just never really works.
Interesting.
So they just stick to Kitty Pryde
Okay.
for the most part.
Sucks for her.
Yeah. But I don't know. She
So
doesn't seem like the only cat in her is her name,
Yeah.
not what she does. So
And she goes through
Shadowcat's
walls. I don't think that makes her a shadow. She should be like the ghost or something. which
Yeah.
that's bad too.
So I don't think that name works for her.
So this is what we learned right off the bat.
Oh, wait. Everybody shut up except me. They've been so the last two movies they were like, we have to have the danger room and we have to have sentinels. And then they had to cut both scenes for both of those things for budgetary reasons. And this is the first movie that has both.
Oh, and
In this
we
scene.
barely get it. But
Yep.
cool. good job, studio. Way to finally give them what they wanted and take away a lot of other things. So things we learn right off the bat. Wolverine and Storm are button heads in this movie. There's been a lot of change that's happening.
Button heads and button butts.
Well, they ain't button butts. They're just button heads. They're great foils for each other because Wolverine is part of the team. He's part of the family, but he's also Wolverine.
He's a loner.
He doesn't work well with teamwork. While Storm is trying to inspire everyone to do teamwork.
Yeah.
Because that's what X-Men are. We're a team. And that kind of follows, that theme and relationship follows through the movie for them.
Yeah.
And then we are introduced to Rogue and Iceman are still together.
Yeah.
But you can tell that the lack of physical touch, that barrier between them is only getting bigger.
Uh-huh.
And Kitty Pryde is, this is not true, but I want to say worming her way in. She's becoming friends. More with Iceman than with Rogue.
Yes.
But throughout the movie, we see that obviously that is a big barrier. I think he still likes Rogue, but he is struggling with that is something that that a relationship needs.
Yeah.
I think they do it well.
I think they do their part of it well. I think another little knock I would do is that they kind of just leave Kitty Pryde at the end of the movie and they don't really end or start, they kind of start stuff mentioning that she's missing home and stuff like that, and then she's just kind of good done at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I know, because she's not, there's no she's never malicious or anything in what she's doing. She's truly just I'm connecting with this person.
Yeah.
And obviously she has a crush on him, but she never does anything about it.
Right.
Gilmore's becoming an X-Man.
Yeah, he's hitting stuff. Here he goes again. Oh man.
But yeah, so if she was actually trying to weasel her way into this relationship, then it would make sense to just throw her away by the end of the movie, because there are things figured out. But since she's not, it's it kind of sucks for her. Yeah,
well, it kind of feels like in X-Men 4, Kitty Pryde's going to be a really prominent player.
Yes,
but they don't make an X-Men 4, so it doesn't happen.
Whatever.
Wolverine's hair is a little bit less crazy.
A little bit less.
We're tracking the Wolverine hair progress.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty there.
Yeah.
And then we have the most shocking casting of all time. I mean, we have Kelsey Grammar, Frazier himself, as Beast. Now, I believe we talked about this last episode, but I'm just going to go over it again. He is notoriously not the best person to work with. I think he seems quite entitled. Although
that's a word on the street.
We did meet someone who had worked with him on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And he said that he was lovely to work with for The Simpsons. So
I don't remember that. But
yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was always a lovely time when he came in to be Sideshow Bob. So but it seems like a guy who knows his value, and he is willing to be a little mean about it, is what it seems like. And imagining that this man would be willing to sit in makeup for probably 3 to 5 hours a day.
At least, right?
And I thought he was in 2 scenes. He is in this movie a lot.
He plays an important part in this movie.
He's like the 4th lead of this movie.
Yeah.
And it is hilarious to watch. I think he's good in the movie.
I do think he's good too.
But it's hilarious to think that he is that he is okay with this.
Kelsey Grammar, to me, so I've never watched Frasier. I actually can't imagine that man being in a sitcom.
Yeah.
Because the way that he sounds, he has such a distinct voice.
Yeah.
That he is the remnants of old Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I just can't imagine him in certain ways. That includes an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. In terms of because you explained to me that the Beast character is studious.
Quite.
And is not he's not, he looks like a beast, but he's assimilated into normal society working for the government. He's mutant relations man.
Yeah. He's not really interested in violence or
so
fighting.
That side of it, it's that makes sense. to cast someone like Kelsey Grammer, but he's got a blue face and hair all over his face. That's strange. But I do appreciate that this is a time when, so we have Hugh Jackman. He's pretty jacked, man.
He's huge.
He's huge, man. But I think he's always been huge. He's just gotten a little bit bigger for us.
Yeah.
But the thing with Kelsey Grammer is he's playing this Beast character, and they just put him in a bodysuit.
Yeah.
We're not to this point of Marvel where Paul Rudd gets casted, and then they're like, okay, this is your shirtless scene. Or Kumail Nanjiani, same thing.
Nanjiani is what you're about to say.
But it was really refreshing.
Yeah, well, and that will continue because Nicholas Hoult does not get big to play Beast. I mean, he's a pretty, like...
I guess just seeing him in a movie, he looked normal.
Yeah. Yeah, Kelsey Grammer kind of has a voice that you'd imagine like on a radio, maybe, right?
Absolutely. Which I guess in Frasier he's a radio guy.
Yeah, I was teeing you up for that.
Yeah, I can't imagine me enjoying that show.
Well, and he plays high class in the show, so it all kind of works. I think Frasier's a pretty fun show. Actually, the episodes I've seen have been pretty enjoyable.
I will say I've never tried. I've never seen a moment of that show in my life.
Yeah. Oh, baby, I hear the blues are talent, tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Oh, baby, I seem a bit confused. Well, maybe I got you pegged.
Okay, let's move on from this.
Oh, but I don't know what to do with those tossed salad and scrambled eggs.
So he is working for Mutant Relations.
Stop
it. Stop.
Bung,
Seriously,
bung.
stop.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, so he is Mutant Relations, and he is in this boardroom with the president and other jabrones, and they find out that...
I'm so sick still.
They find out that Mystique did what?
So, Mystique...
First of all, this movie's getting kickstarted by Mystique, MVP of the movie.
Jordan, you're a big Mystique head.
There would be nothing without her.
Yeah, she does jumpstart and get the plots going. You are right. She finds out that they are working on a cure vaccine for the mutants.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are basically she finds out this information, and I believe she finds out who the leech is. So she knows that there's a mutant
that they were able to get create the vaccine from.
Yeah, because basically there's this little kid that when mutants are around him, and the Beast even goes to him, and he reaches out his hand, and when he does, he's turning into regular human hand, and he's looking at himself, and it's kind of a good scene where he's like, oh my gosh, I remember this. This is what I kind of want to become again, and then he becomes the mutant again. And so they're harvesting that somehow and creating vaccines with it.
Mm-hmm. Have you read any X-Men runs with a vaccine?
No.
Okay. This was pretty wild premise of a movie, because then later, based on what we've gone through in our current moment in history.
Yeah.
Because especially later on when people are at vaccine sites and you have protesters.
Yeah.
Protesting no mutant vaccine, no vaccines, and it's wild, man.
Yeah. It's it's a little different. It's a little different. I don't even.
That's all.
The allegory goes there, but I like to keep it to the mutant stuff allegory.
Yeah.
Because I love me that COVID shot. So let's see here. Then there's this great scene where Magneto is talking about mutants feeding on his... Wait, I wrote Magneto talks to mutants feeding on his Jewish history. Oh, yes. It's a weird way to word it.
This is when he goes to that gathering of mutants to talk about this vaccine and what they're going to do about it.
Yes. And he's kind of they're kind of like, who do you even think you are? And he's basically like, hey, I was a Jew during the Holocaust.
No. The girl comes up to him.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that there were classes of mutants, so that was a pause for the movie for Micah to explain to me what that meant. Because this girl comes up to him and says...
I just used the clues from the movie to figure that out.
I guess all of a sudden they're talking about class 3. But I don't know. I don't have a frame of reference of is that good? Or are all these people wimps? That's what I don't know.
Well, they say he's class Yeah.
What, he's class 4?
No,
Oh,
I guess
big
they
deal.
said he's class 3, but then later they say Jean is class 5, and they've never seen something like that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not a true dig at the movie. But this woman comes up to him, and she has the power. She not only is super fast, but she can sense people's, like, I guess, classes, their mutant class. And so she says, "What's your number?" And that's when he flashes her the number that he got at Auschwitz.
Well, she says, "Where's your mark?" Because he sees that they all have these tattoos.
Oh,
and then he goes,
right.
"I have a mark," and he shows her the number he was tattooed with at
In the Holocaust.
In the Holocaust, and he says, "And I assure you, I will never let a needle touch my skin again." Good scene.
Yeah.
And you know, he's coming from this again, like in the other two movies. He's coming from, if we allow this to happen, they will do what they did to the Jews in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that extends to our recent events, but for this movie, it works and it's good. So we already talked about Jimmy from the FDA. And so
Jimmy from the FDA.
Oh my gosh, the leech, Jimmy the leech.
Oh, Jimmy the leech.
Yeah. So then Scott is starting to hear like Jean's voice.
He's going crazy cuckoo time. He's going, as the British call, nutters.
Okay. That's funny.
He's crazy with grief. So he hops on his Harley Davidson, moseys on out to the alkaline lake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Looks like somebody paying attention.
I read words sometimes in movies. And he is looking for Jane. He's continuing to hear her voice. He's going nuts. He shoots his eyes in the water out of just aggression, frustration. And then next thing he knows, she's come out of the water.
Yeah.
But she seems a little different.
Yeah, and she's like, Scott, Scott, take off your glasses. I want to see your eyes. I can control it. And he does, and she controls it. And then that is the last time we see Cyclops in this movie.
Yeah. They kiss.
That's bad writing, right?
Yes.
He's a big character to kill off screen and have no other scenes with him.
It's awful. It's awful. I was waiting the whole movie for him to come back.
And I do think, like, they don't really give much of a reasoning for her coming back.
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know. They're just like, hey, Jean's back. There's not really
they say there's a throwaway line.
Okay.
I think Professor X, but it's all speculation. He says she must have, with her telekinesis, put like a water force field around her to protect herself. But then it's also like, and she's just been down there this whole time.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so that element, I'm giving points to the people who don't like the movie.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work.
Also, this is the only time that I can think of in this movie this moment where she's like, I can control it, therefore his eye beams don't kill her.
Yeah,
there's no other time that she's demonstrating that power again, and I was just interested to see how she could.
You know what? I'm gonna take back what I said at the beginning of the episode. This is not a good adaptation of Dark Pheonix.
Okay.
Because now that we're talking about the specifics, and I'm not just like watching a fun movie, it doesn't really make sense, and they kind of waste her.
I do think that she is the weakest link.
Oh, are you on that one show?
It's time for her to leave.
But yeah, we do find out that Xavier put up psychic barriers in her brain.
Yeah.
To prevent the power from overflowing.
That was an interesting
I like that.
ethical or moral quandary. So when he met her, he, I guess, realized her potential and also that potential for danger and hid that part from herself. And he says that because he did that, her brain made another personality, basically to like be assigned to those powers that were hidden from her.
The Phoenix personality.
And Wolverine is like, should you have done that?
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of feeling the same way.
Yeah.
But it is also like, but he is the smartest. But it's an interesting gray area.
Yeah.
It's an interesting gray area.
That they also kind of don't pay off.
Okay.
I guess they kind of do because she kills Xavier.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe even just a line of like, you held me back all these years. But she just kind of kills him, you know? I don't think she even says anything to him. Am I misremembering?
I can't remember either.
Okay. Well, then we cut back to the Cure. And Angel is going to be the first one to do it because Papa is leader of the team.
Yep.
And so he gets over there. He's getting strapped in. He has his wings like taped behind his back. And you're kind of like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool. And then they're about to give him the cure, and he busts out, and he like spreads his wings, and it looks pretty cool.
Mhm.
And then he flies away.
This is kind of the funny thing about this character, though. So this happens, big moment, lots of courage to do that.
Yeah.
Breaks free from his chains, metaphorically and literally, bursts through the window, and sails on to his happy life, accepting who he is.
Yeah.
We do not see him again for a long time, until after Professor X is dead, and he comes meandering into the school and is like, I hear you, I understand you guys help people. And then that's when Storm's like, we do help people. And then we don't see him again, I think, until he's just soaring through the skies.
That actually works for me.
It does?
Yeah, it does. Because
I guess what, in terms of like thematic, like what about that makes sense to keep in the movie?
I think it just makes sense to show a mutant that is not involved in the fight that chooses to be who they are.
Okay. Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, it also shows like, oh, this school is going to live on and they are going to help people because we've seen this conflicted character.
So he's a symbol of hope.
Yeah, so I actually kind of dig that, and I kind of dig that he doesn't like join in the battle at the last second, and then there's all these scenes where he like gets introduced to the team and yada yada yada.
Yeah, that would suck.
I
can't believe this is like a finale to a trilogy, and this movie was less than 2 hours.
1 hour and 44 minutes. Let's go.
And they pack it in.
Yeah. So then Magneto is going to break out Mystique, and this is when they kind of waste Mystique too.
Oh yeah, totally. It is interesting though, because I didn't know this was a finale.
Yeah.
So when this happened, I was so surprised.
Yeah.
So in a way, I did like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she is being transported probably to some prison with a couple other mutants. And I do like the scene of Magneto stopping everything with his powers.
His magnet powers.
His magnet powers. It looked cool.
Yeah.
And then she breaks out. They also break out this clone dude who I swear auditioned for the role of Superman as well.
Uh-huh.
And then also broke out the Juggernaut.
Yes. And then one of the officers shoots Mystique, the officers, like the guards, shoots Mystique with the cure needles. And this is when Magneto finds out, like, oh, they're already weaponizing this?
Yeah.
This is bad news. And then she turns into her human self, and he's like, see ya, you're not a mutant anymore. You used to be so beautiful.
Yeah. Cold.
And then she's done.
Ice cold.
I think she's in like one scene and implying that she
gave secrets to the government
yeah.
because she was betrayed.
Yeah.
In a way, continuing to move the movie forward. But Magneto and his new crew go to Jean's childhood home.
Yeah.
Well, okay, by this time Jean wakes up and stuff.
She wakes up and her and Wolverine have
They get it
a
on.
make-out sesh.
Hardcore.
This is pretty intense. She rips off the belt with her telekinetic powers, his belt, and things are going intense. And then he's kind of like, wait a second, Jean, you're being a little nutso. But he's also like, wow, I'm a Wolverine, you know what I mean? So he's in a dilemma, but then they don't do it.
And she runs away.
Yeah.
She knocks him out and she runs away. She runs to her childhood home. Wolverine, Storm, and Professor X go to the home while Magneto's already there. And they all go inside, and I think the scene's pretty cool.
I like the scene.
I thought, especially for 2006, it looked great.
Yeah.
So
Jean is like having a mental battle with Charles.
Yeah.
And it's like raising the house, and it's like keeping everybody at bay so they can't help. And then she disintegrates Charles Xavier, which is wild. A bit unceremonious, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I do think it works for the movie, but it's a little like, I mean, you got to give Charles a pretty epic death, and I don't know if this quite lives up to it.
Yeah.
But I think for this series, I think I kind of like it. But like if let's say we had the X-Men in the MCU and this was how they chose to kill him off, I would be very disappointed because I'm
Yeah.
like, you got this guy. Let's get 10 movies with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then have him like die in this phase's Avengers Endgame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have him really die. And I know Phoenix is like one of the most powerful characters ever, but it's just a bit from a macro view, it's a little like, I mean, I guess they truly had in mind, which I guess this is what's kind of unique about this movie. This is 2 years before Iron Man comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have in mind, let's make an endless franchise. They have in mind, this is the last one. So they are like, let's kill Charles.
And this
Let's
man
kill Jean.
is dying because of what he decided to do with this child when she was a child by locking up part of her powers in her mind. So like way back then, and he's now he is experiencing the consequences of that.
Yeah.
It literally kills him, that choice that he made in a way, you know.
Yeah.
But so
I guess
that's interesting.
I'm kind of flip-flopping because on the other hand, it's like there was a time when a superhero movie wasn't like the comic books where you always knew they were going to come back, you know, at some point, even if it was just a few years. But now the movies are like that, you know what I mean? I mean, I doubt Iron Man will ever come back, but he could.
Yeah.
You know, if Robert Downey Jr. doesn't have a hit in the next 5 years, there's probably going to be a movie where Iron Man comes back, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It is kind of refreshing now that we're discussing it, that the movie is like, we're making these big swings and you might not like it. And a lot of people didn't.
And I think that's what I like about it because of where I'm at now, where we're all at now with franchises.
Yeah.
That looking back on this one is like, oh, they did something.
Yeah. And then they fight, Wolverine and Juggernaut fight for a little bit.
Yep.
Great shot of Juggernaut, same shot, throws him through a ceiling in one room and he comes out the ceiling of another room.
Yeah.
Down, same shot. That's cool. They fight for a while and then everybody goes their separate ways.
That sounds so lame.
Yeah, well, I couldn't remember any specifics besides that.
Well, Jean is with Magneto now, and they're all in the forest. Him and his army are
cronies
are hiding in the forest.
Okay.
While at the youngster school, everyone's just trying to pick up the pieces. The dude who started it all is dead.
Uh-huh.
And Beast is there and they're all kind of like, I think this is all over. Like the school, everything it stands for, it's just over.
Yeah.
But then that's when we get Angel comes in and asks if this school is still a school, and that's when Storm, because before this, Professor X told Storm, you're the one who would take over the school.
Right.
So she does take up the responsibility.
Yeah.
And is like, this school's going to keep going, and everyone's crying, and everyone's cheering.
And then Bobby takes Kitty ice skating on the fountain.
Yep.
To which Rogue witnesses this. Which the whole time, as the scene's progressing, you're like, okay, so Rogue's going to witness this, and it'll sow the seeds of jealousy even further.
Well, it's a story. What do you want?
It's actually kind of a good scene.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah. It pushes her to make the decision that she's going to get the vaccine.
Yeah,
Because
so Rogue...
her power isn't worth what she's missing out on as a human.
Right.
To her.
Yeah.
So she goes to do it. Are we at this scene, though, where she's there?
Talking to Wolverine.
Oh, she's talking to Wolverine, and he's like, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not your dad or anything, but I think if you really need to think about what you're about to do before you do it.
Yeah.
Kind of like, if there's any part of you that doubts it, don't do it, kind of thing.
And then she leaves.
But then she leaves.
Still terrible accent, bad performance.
Not great.
But we got two really classically bad directors. So again, Anna Paquin, you're free of any guilt.
She's still an Oscar award-winning actress.
Yeah.
So.
And then Storm's going to take over the school. And then I did write, because I hadn't seen the movie in so long, I was like, I guess Cyclops is really gone. Because it just seemed odd to me that he hadn't been in the movie for so long. But it was like so weird to me that he wasn't killed on screen.
I know.
So
I guess we wouldn't have believed he was really dead because we couldn't see his eyes.
Huh?
According to the studio.
Oh.
We're not smart enough to know that someone is dead because we couldn't see their eyes. We can't
Yeah.
relate to him or sympathize or empathize with him.
You're right. And here I am just waxing poetic. Is that a phrase?
I don't know.
I don't think
what
it
does that
is.
even mean?
I don't know. Sometimes I just say things like I'm a billionaire from Glass Onion or something. Wink, wink. So yeah, then the U.S. kind of tracks down where Magneto's at, and Wolverine also is gonna attack this little base to try and stop Jean.
Try to get her back.
Get her back, I mean. And he's attacked by someone who I dubbed as Unicorn Poop Thrower.
Yeah,
because
that guy had a gross ability.
He had a gross ability.
He grows horns out of his arms
and then shoots them, and it is very like poopish. It is as a poop vibe to
like,
it.
couldn't the horns at least have been like purple
Nope.
or something? I don't know.
Nope.
It looked gross.
Yeah, it was a little nasty. So they fight for a while. Does he make any connection with Jean at this point?
So he finally gets to Jean, and Magneto's there. And Magneto subdues him and like doesn't let him get near her, but he does talk to her, right?
Yeah.
What does he say? Basically, it's probably the classic thing of like, I know the real Jean's in there, and the real Jean would come back, and we all still want her back. Make the right choice, Jean.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then while this is happening, Rogue is in line to get the vaccine. Iceman is there trying to find her in the crowd of protesters, and Pyro is there. And so they have a little argument. They part, and then Pyro starts a riot.
Yes.
By exploding the vaccine area, the building.
Yeah.
Well, catching it on fire.
It's a war now. And the government thinks they track down Magneto, but alas, it is the multiple man guy who has made a bunch of decoys, and he says something funny when he turns into himself.
What is it? Something like, "Oh, what are you looking for me?"
Something like that. He just has a big smirk on his face, and it's like, this guy knows what movie he's in, and he's having fun. And then they go to the Golden Gate Bridge. We're already at the end of this movie because it clips along so quickly. And Magneto moves the bridge from the mainland of San Francisco so it goes mainland to Alcatraz, where the vaccine clinic is and where the kid is at. So they can then get the kid and probably kill him, I would imagine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now they fight the Juggernaut again, and Juggernaut and Kitty fight.
Well, they don't fight. She avoids fighting him by running through walls because there's literally nothing she can do to stop him.
She puts him in walls and tries to make him stuck.
Ground. I thought that was cool. And then she gets to the kid first and is going to get him out of here. And she tries going through a wall. Doesn't work.
She can't.
Because the kid's powers takes away anyone else's powers.
Yeah.
So they have to figure out a different way to get out.
And then the Juggernaut gets there, and then she's like, hey, come at me. And then he runs and knocks himself out because his power goes away when he's around that kid.
Yeah. Smart
move.
Yeah.
I will point out they do the classic trope that I really think we got to retire at this point where a male is fighting a female and he says something and then he ends it with bitch. Because he goes,
I absolutely agree with you. We are in 2006, though.
We are in 2006, but he goes, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Come on. Freddy's the only one who can call people that.
Freddy, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. Wolverine kicks a guy in the balls who can grow back limbs and says, grow back this. That's pretty bad.
It is, but that was a genuine laugh for me.
That's a bad
that
moment.
guy looked bad too.
Yeah. He's just cutting off his limbs, and then he kicks him, and he says, "Grow."
And then we
this
finally
back.
see the use of Pufferfish Man or Porcupine Man because throughout the movie, who is played by the guy who plays Jaren in Old. I actually don't know the actor's name.
Okay. Well, yeah, we discussed this.
Throughout, we not in this podcast.
No, I was acknowledging that you did tell me that, and I remember you telling me that, but not on this podcast. So
while this is happening, no. Throughout the movie, he will just, as a
puff up.
Threat, puff up, but we never actually see what he does. And then we finally see it as he just hugs someone and does the puffer thing, and that's it. That's a pretty well, I don't know. It's not a great power.
No.
Because you got to get really close to someone to use it.
Yeah, it's not great.
Not great.
And then we have something that happens that I think that you'll agree with me, but maybe you didn't think of. The X-Men team gets the cure and they shoot it at Magneto, thus depowering him.
Yeah.
I don't think they should have done that.
Why?
Because this is a team that believes in mutants, and I think the ethics of the good guys curing, quote unquote, the mutant bad guy is wrong.
Who does it? Who pulls the trigger?
I think they all attempt to do it.
Really?
I think Wolverine and Storm, and then Beast. Beast, I think, is the one that actually does it. I can't remember for sure, but it seems like it goes against all the things that they believe in.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And so when
I was just so shocked that it happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a cool development. I wish that they did it another way, or it got to a point where it was like, there truly is no other option. And we see that the hero is like, I'm going to have to do something that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But instead, they're like, oh, here, look, there's 3 things. Let's all go get them. And then they do it. And they depower Magneto. Yeah. And I just think that that's like against what they all stand for as characters.
But Micah, this movie's only an hour and 44 minutes. They simply did not have the time.
It is funny. I do like this movie. And I would rewatch it over the first movie, but I do think that it fundamentally story-wise is like is. I get why people don't like it now the more we talk about it.
I just think it's better made than the other two.
I think it's better made than the first one.
I think I like the story better too. But yeah.
I do love the cure stuff though. I mean, that's such an interesting concept. I remember when I first watched it, I was just like, that's endlessly fascinating. So endlessly fascinating that I never watched it again until the other night. But then Jean is like, I lose control. And then Wolverine slowly makes his way up there. He's like disintegrating and regenerating.
Yeah, it looked
very cool. And then he stabs her in the gut.
Because it's the only, like you just said, this is the decision he has to live with for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
That's the only thing he can do to stop her is kill her.
Yeah. And I think that is totally earned.
Yeah.
So did that shock you?
No, because I think you told me that that's what has to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I think you told me not in this movie, just in general. That's a Phoenix thing.
Well, I think I did say, because I thought you'd seen this one. I think I did say, like, no, the next one is the one where he kills her.
No, yeah, like, I knew this was going to happen.
But yeah, that's all good and dandy. And then we find out Rogue cured herself.
Yes.
And so now she can hang out with Bobby. And he says...
I never asked you to do this.
Yeah, which is sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Magneto playing chess by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the Inception ending 4 years early.
Mm-hmm.
Where a chess piece moves very subtly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool.
Yeah. A metal chess piece.
A metal chess piece.
Specific.
It is very, very cool. I love that ending.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a post-credit scene, folks, that I did not know about. Where the consciousness of Charles Xavier has been moved into someone else's body.
Okay, but this is what I'm confused by. So earlier in this movie, like Act 1, he's teaching a class. And I actually can't remember what they were talking about because I kind of felt like I was talking. Sorry, at this time. But you
kind of talked a lot during this one
in the first part, and then I bit my tongue. But not she. He was showing this video
that had Moira McTaggart in it, of course.
Moira McTaggart, wonderful woman.
Yeah.
She was like giving a presentation. In the background is this guy that's like on life support and he's brain dead. And I just don't understand what the class was about because he actually got cut off and couldn't finish.
Well, he did say, so I think maybe you were talking through this part. He did say, now perhaps what would happen if would it be ethical to move someone's consciousness into, say, this man's body?
Okay.
Who is like brain dead or whatever.
Okay.
And then he got cut off. And then at the end of the post credits, he moved himself into that body.
Dang it.
Yeah. So the ethics question is, I guess you can take over somebody's body if you're Professor X. Do you know that the brother from Get Out is in X-Men First Class?
Who does he play?
He plays Banshee, of course.
Oh, he just yells.
He screams, honey.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that kind of thing. I think I did know that.
Yeah.
That's whatever. We'll
Yeah.
get there.
So that's the movie, right?
Yeah. Not perfect by any means. Far from perfect. Especially because Nightcrawler's not in it. That's capital offense number 1.
Huge.
But I did like this movie.
I like it too. I think it's a solid 6.
Sure.
But I would say that X2 is like a solid 7. It's a solid 7, but it's a superhero 8.
Okay.
It's a movie 7, but a superhero movie 8.
Okay, how many more of these are you going to do?
That was it. So how do you feel about this original trilogy of X-Men movies? Because you've been dreading that we have to cover the X-Men movies.
I think I was never dreading these ones.
Yeah.
I've been dreading the ones I hate. Well, I haven't seen this third one, but I've been dreading these ones that I've never cared to figure out.
Yeah. Do you feel, though...
But I am more interested in it than going through Fast and Furious, for example.
Oh, yeah. Well, these
it's not
have
the
some
same,
personality
it's not
to
the
them.
same type of dread.
Right. So here's another question. Do you feel like the X-Men are pretty unique compared to the other superhero characters that you've been
No.
consuming? No?
No, because I just don't understand. Was this because I've never read a comic and I don't really know how it works? But how is Spider-Man? Well, I know he was bit by a spider, so maybe that's just the answer to all these questions. But
Yeah.
how is he not a mutant compared to mutants?
Well, mutants are born with it.
Okay,
Maybe
but
they're born with
are
it. Maybe
any-
it's mutinine. Maybe it's Maybelline. That's the bit.
Okay, so in any of these MCU movies, is anyone born with it?
Well, that's where it gets complicated.
Oh, interesting.
Because they didn't have the rights to any of the mutants.
Okay, but I'm talking comic book wise.
Well, I'm saying, but Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are both mutants.
Okay, that's
But-
right.
But they had to not acknowledge that in the movies.
In the comic books, are they from whatever Eastern European country they're from?
I think so.
Okay, Sokovia or whatever that is.
I think so, but I wouldn't bet money on that.
Okay. So I guess I just answered my own question.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, yes, they're unique.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why they need a whole school for it, but also I get it.
Yeah.
I just think I guess what I'm trying to figure out in my brain is it doesn't make sense that the X-Men live in the same world as the Marvel characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very confusing to me.
Yeah.
It's too big. The world's too big. It's almost if mutants exist in this Marvel world where there are already so many superheroes, how is this just not a John Wick world where everyone's an assassin?
Well, yes, and that is the superhero thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really valid complaint with this universe and just comics in general, because it is kind of weird that Spider-Man can't be an X-Men, but he can be an Avenger, but Angel can be an Avenger if he wants sometimes. And well, the Avengers are always a constantly changing roster.
That's true. That's true.
And some of that stuff is really cool, but
Yeah.
also at the same time, former guest of the show, Kevin Hines, always says that his hot take on Spider-Man is he thinks that he's best served when he's in a universe that's occupied by only him.
Yeah.
And as much as I actually agree with that, except for the fact that my favorite movie is Spider-Verse of Spider-Man movies. You know what I mean?
That's only occupied with other versions of himself. So
Yeah. But I mean, and there
Yeah.
are great stories where Spider-Man, is teaming up or he has to fight Juggernaut or something like that. There are, but it's almost I
get that.
it's almost
Well, it's 'cause
some of the
It
limitations.
keeps the world small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's friendly neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there is definitely an argument to be made for the mutants hit harder if the whole world thinks that if
That they don't belong.
Yeah, and there's not there's also Captain America, but we like him. No, it's there's all these mutants, and that's the only thing.
Yeah,
You know?
I didn't even think about it on that level, but that's even more confusing.
Yeah, and I think
Let's not bring him into the MCU.
well,
We
I
can't
think
handle it.
the worst thing that they could do with the X-Men in the MCU, which I don't think they will do because Kevin Feige is smart, but the worst thing they could do is make them just like straight up basically superheroes and lose a lot of the depth of the freakness of who they are. Because part of what's interesting about them is like, whoa, these are freaks amongst us humans, and that's where like all the allegories come into play and stuff. And so, when they adapted Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, they brought them in and they were like, hey, we have to put them on the Avengers and pretend like they're not mutants, so they're superheroes. But if they do that with all of the X-Men, I think that it won't.
They'll lose something there too.
Yeah, they won't be as good as these movies.
Yeah.
If they do that.
Yeah. That's tough stuff.
I know. That's why you do need someone like Kevin Feige to figure that stuff out. Because I don't think I could write that. But I also can't wait for them to be included. Half of the fun is like, who's going to be Wolverine in the MCU?
Yeah.
Who's going to be Cyclops? Who's,
Yeah.
Are they going to reuse actors? I don't know.
Right.
It's exciting.
Let's give Daniel Radcliffe a shot.
I know that's what the internet wants. They want Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine.
I'm on board with that.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And he's so different looking from Hugh Jackman. I don't think the comparisons would come in. But let's get that Fantastic Four movie out here, though. That's what we need. Thank you for listening.
Yep. Thank you.
This month on Patreon, we are covering Knives Out. And so you can listen to that. I'm also going to start something on the first of each month on Patreon. I haven't even talked to you about this, but I'm going to...
Unbelievable. We're married.
I thought of this today, and I think it'd be cool. And I think I'll just make this free to anybody. You can go to Patreon, and I'll write down all the movies I watched that month, and you can do it too if you want to, and maybe highlight some notable ones and say like, oh, this was really cool or whatever, because we only talk about franchises. And we watch a lot of other movies besides that. And there's a lot more that I would sometimes rather talk about. So I think I'll do a little blog at the first of the month post that anyone can look at.
Yeah.
And that's patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW. You can also watch my music video on my YouTube channel for Ghost in My House. So check that out. See if my music video is as good as X-Men The Last Stand. And let me know in the comments. What about you, Jordan?
Oh, wait. Month are we in?
We're in February.
My birthday's probably happened.
I'll check while you're looking.
Other than that, I don't have much yet. I think I said this last episode. There will be more for me artistic news later in the year.
Well, why don't you tell them about... So, it's the 10th of February. So your birthday's next week. Mm-hmm. No, actually, it's in 2 weeks because of the way it lines up. Why don't you tell them about your blog, though? We haven't plugged that in a long time.
I do have a blog. It's called Recount and Reveal, recountandreveal.com, where I write about bizarre historical happenings throughout the world with a major emphasis on folklore. Every once in a while, I'll interview another horror or folklore enthusiast. Not super often, mostly about some folklore stuff and how cool folklore is and how it's all throughout the world and many cultures share the same type of folklore, but it's all so different at the same time.
It's great stuff. So thanks for listening, and next week it's X-Men Origins Wolverine.
You been originated.